Hey guys, welcome back to Pistons Talk Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great afternoon on this Sunday. We are joined by a host of the Pistons Pulse podcast. A lot of Pistons fans probably recognize him from there, but maybe you seen him on the Game Theory with Sam Vecenie, Bryce Simon. Bryce, welcome back to the show, man. It's been a while.
What's up, Anthony? How are you doing? Yeah, I know we've been talking about this for a minute. You tried to get a little bit different of a thing going. My life has been a little busy. My weekends actually have been, I'm done with school right now, but then all of a sudden weekends kind of picked up and stuff. But I'm glad we were able to make this happen here on Sunday. I'm excited to talk Pistons with you.
Yeah, I mean we got Mr. Ray, bobblehead Bryce. So had to show the bobblehead.
There it is. B Bobbler. I don't know. I kind of gave up on my push with it. It didn't feel like it was getting much traction, but I did have one person that reached out. Somebody sent me an email or a DM or something like, hey, remember the bobblehead that you were always pushing and talking about? Can you send me to the website? So I got them one sale. I didn't quite get the push that I was hoping for when I started out. Still very good product though.
Yeah, I mean, I have not seen a bee bobble or bobblehead. The only bobblehead that I have that's kind of lifelike is from Foco because they sent me like a Kate Cunningham bobblehead and they're like,
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
it's hand painted. I was like, oh, when am I getting it? They're like, oh, maybe like 8 months. We have to hand paint these. I was like, oh, okay. So I gotta wait. I got it last summer and like the detail is like insane. Like they even got
Really?
his like they got like his fro, they got like his beard like perfect. I was like, that's kind of creepy. Like
Yeah.
how well they can get these bobbleheads. Before we jump into the podcast, anytime I have a guest on, you want to plug anything that you work on because I know you do a bunch of podcasts. You do some stuff on your Substack, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, so Twitter, Blue Sky at Motor City Hoops, Substack, motorcityhoops.substack.com. I have some video breakdowns that of some guys we will be talking about today. I believe I finally started doing some NBA draft stuff since we have a little bit of an idea what the draft is going to look like with the college withdrawal deadline having passed. And then, as you mentioned, Game Theory podcast. The big thing there, especially I assume most of your listeners, viewers are Pistons fans. We are doing all 30 teams offseason preview. And we did recently drop the Detroit Pistons one. It already has
Yeah.
I think he has the most views over there, which is not a surprise to me. I know the Pistons fan base reps really strong. But if you haven't, go to the Game Theory podcast. It wasn't alive. It's just under the videos tab, and you'll be able to scroll and find it.
Awesome. We got Ben Spicer in here saying love Motor City Hoops and
Thank you.
Pistons Talk Podcast. Like the Pistons community, that does not shock me at all. So I was at work and someone sent me that 40-minute video breakdown of like you and Sam, and I was like kind of procrastinating. I was like, I'll watch it later. Watched it at 3 o'clock in the morning last night because I couldn't sleep, and I was just like, oh man. And I'm like, I'm reading the comments. Pistons like, why can't they play together? I was just like, oh, they definitely did a really good job of just breaking down. And I watched the Orlando Magic one too. Like they're just really, really well done. Like you and Sam do a phenomenal job over there. But I do have your Substack. Everything's linked. Like I have your Substack linked in the description if you guys want to check that out. I read your Maxine Renault piece as well, which we're going to talk about because I reached out to you maybe like a week or two ago. I was like, am I crazy or like would he be perfect?
Yeah, no, he's really and again, real quick, the Substack is completely free, guy. That's not changing. It's always going to be like that. It's just during the season, it's a lot of game notes and stuff like that. Obviously, in the off season, it slows down a little bit. But I have a few other contributors. There's a really cool piece over there with the Pistons super fan that was done a couple weeks ago. That's got a lot of views and reads and all of that. So there's a little bit of something for everybody. But again, it's free. That's not going to change. So subscribe and check it out.
Yeah, I mean, you guys want to just check it out. Link in the description to that. The Pistons Pulse podcast, Game Theory podcast, your Twitter. I don't know where else you're at, but that's all I could find really. So
I copy and paste stuff to Blue Sky, but that seemed, I mean, it is what it is. So,
oh man, I tried Blue Sky. I think I quit after a week. I was like, dude, I don't think I can run another social media platform.
Yeah. No, it's literally copy and paste for what I do. And I can tell I'm not very active over there because like my timeline, like I haven't followed back very well. And so my timeline gets just like, it's mostly full of like 2 or 3 people and stuff like that. So I just use it because I know there are some people over there and want to make sure they see stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, who knows when Twitter will be gone or not? It seems like every other week, like it gets worse. But hey, we'll get into some Pistons. I know we rambled on for 5 minutes, but hey, who cares? It's 12 in the morning, and I'm trying to drown out all the lawnmowers in my neighborhood right now because everyone's just like Sunday, let's cut the grass.
Yep.
So I wanted to kind of get into the Detroit Pistons cap situation because I think it's very intriguing. So I wanted to ask you, do you think they'll try to operate as an over the cap team or under the cap team?
Yeah, and so again, you mentioned the Pistons Pulse a couple times. We had Keith Smith, who I'm sure most people know. We had him on the pod this week, and we really dove into this. Like, we probably spent 20 minutes with him talking about, okay, if they're under the cap, this is how, this is why, this is what they can do. If they're over the cap, this is how, this is why, this is what they can do. My best guess is they just operate over the cap. Unless they truly have a free agent out there that they really covet and think that they can land. And I do think that those conversations go on behind the scenes. I think tampering is real. Like I'm one of those that thinks all of that happens. The thing is, I think for them to truly get enough money now that Cade made All NBA to make a real difference in free agency, it would seem like a Fontecchio trade into somebody's trade exception or something like that would also have to be into play. Cause like they're under 20 million, Anthony, and that's renouncing everybody. And that's the important caveat, right? If they are an under the cap team, that means they have to use that cap space or the room exception to bring back any of Beasley, Schroeder, Tim Hardaway Jr., and then Paul Reed and Lindy Waters as well. Not quite as important, but at least worth mentioning. So I assume they go over the cap unless they just have, pinpointed a free agent and feel very strongly that they can bring that guy in.
I know there were some names that were floated out yesterday from Mark Stein that
I saw that. Yeah.
I'm very interested to see like what that is all about because kind of seems like a wish list at this point. But I do agree with you. Like I think operating over the cap makes more sense. Kind of gives them, I think, a little bit more flexibility because you could possibly do sign and trades as well. Like if I did a piece that I collaborated with someone and we did like a sign and trade with Tim Hardaway Jr. For John Collins from Utah, which nice. I don't really know if Utah would do it, but like I was like, we need more power forward depth. I can't really, see anyone else. He's on a last year deal. You never know. I think kind of go over the cap.
To with that real quick, Anthony. Sam was actually the one that came up with it. And I've had it, but like I think he talked about Dennis Schroeder to the Mavericks in a similar type of situation. They need that guard, especially with Kyrie Irving out for all of next year, whatever it ends up being, and then bringing back a PJ Washington. I guess there could be a conversation whether it's PJ or Najee Marshall or whatever. Real quick on the Stein stuff. I don't see the Jaren Jackson Jr. thing. Like, I don't understand how he's getting out of Memphis and even how, like, I think then Detroit would be trading Tobias Harris to create cap space in that scenario. Turner, like, is probably a little closer. My question then would be, are you trading Isaiah Stewart? Are you trading Jalen Duren? Like, what are you doing if you're bringing in Miles Turner? I think you need 3 bigs, but I don't know if you're going to keep all 3 of Miles Turner, Jalen Duren, and Isaiah Stewart happy in that scenario. And so those names were interesting to me, even though I do think that they would be really good fits. Like, that's an archetype I like of both of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, the Mark Stein report with Naz Reid and Miles Turner, I have it a little bit later in the podcast, but this the kind of touch on it. It's interesting, but in the same breath, I'm like, is this agent talk? Because we're getting closer to the draft. I think we're probably going to see a lot of trades in the draft and this summer, just the way a lot of teams don't want to go into those apron taxes. But I'd be lying to you if I said I wouldn't love that. I think it upgrades the team. I mean, then you have more ways to pick and pop with Cade, and a star being out there and being a non-shooter isn't as bad as like a Jalen Duren being out there. No shot at him. That's just not part of his game yet.
Okay, so I misread the tweet then. I thought it was Jaren and
No.
Miles. It was Nas and Miles. Okay, that makes so much more sense. I must have just like skimmed it and just put Jaren in. Okay, my bad. So I apologize to everybody. Because Jaren has potential. He's on an extension. Yeah, his whole thing's an extension conversation anyway. So it was Nas. And so somebody asked me about Nas as well. It's the same idea though. Like Nas makes a lot of sense. Also, I would be surprised if Minnesota lets him go. So.
Yeah, same here. But you look at their cap sheet. It's like,
yeah, that's true.
It's like, what happens with Julius Randle? Is he going to opt into that player option?
True.
Probably. I think they might try to maybe retool, try to get better, because all these NBA teams at the end of the day are trying to get better. But it's to me, I think we're going to have a very entertaining summer in the NBA. I think it's probably going to be the most active summer we've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. I don't think it's free agency though, right? Like as you mentioned, It's going to be a lot of trades, and it will be. There's some big names out there, right? But it will go beyond that. There will be a trickle effect. Hopefully those ones happen early, because it seems like sometimes those big names can hold up the flow of everything else. So if Giannis is going to get moved, hopefully it happens early. If Durant is going to get moved, hopefully it happens early. And then all of these other, I don't want to say tertiary, that's almost disrespectful, but all these other moves can go ahead and happen as well.
Yeah, just a pull LeBron, please. Don't wait to the last possible moment, and everyone's just like waiting and sitting on their hands to do something, and then you're like, screw it, and then you get like the Shams notifications at 3 a.m. You're like, oh, what the hell? What are we doing?
Yep.
I wanted to shift focus over to two guys on the roster that are very polarizing: Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, and kind of like contract extensions, because I kind of asked the question. And I was kind of surprised by the outcome of, who you would rather extend, who do you kind of believe in long term. But I wanted to ask you, like, do you think they get contract extensions this summer? And what do you think a ballpark for both of these guys could possibly be?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a little bit lower on thinking it will get done, in terms of I really felt like Jalen Duren is the more he's interesting in terms of, like, the center market is fascinating, Anthony. I always bring this up. If I'm Jalen Duren, I say Nick Claxton got $25 million a year and I'm better than Nick Claxton. And if I'm the Pistons, I say, well, Zubats is at like $20 million a year and you're not better than him. And so it's just a very interesting market with Jalen Duren. I know I've gotten a lot of pushback from people. I almost feel like I've misrepresented my own position on this. I feel like a lot of people, maybe I said it, have said that, like, I'm like Asar and Duren can't survive together that's not necessarily, like, again, if I said that, I misrepresented my own opinion. I think it's fair to consider that though, Anthony. Like, I do think there should be questions, like, that's two complete non-shooters. Do you really think you're going to win at the highest level with those two guys? And so I think it's fair to at least wonder. And then I know people have thrown back like net ratings and stuff like that. Here's the thing I'll throw at you, Anthony. You know who has the best two lineup net rating with 500 plus minutes this season for the Pistons?
It's probably non-shooters.
It is Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris. And so you want to know where that duo ranks in terms of defensive rating between two-man lineups on the Detroit Pistons this year with 500 plus minutes?
Are they in the top 5?
They are number 2,
wow.
Anthony. So my only point is here, it's not to discredit that the net rating for Asar and Jalen Duren is good. I'm not trying to do that. I think me bringing up some of the offensive areas of the floor and stuff like that is also fair. I think it's fair to bring up both sides. All I want to point out is it's not always like the end all be all, right? Like, just because Tobias Harris and Malik Beasley are second on the team in defensive rating whenever you look at two-man lineups doesn't mean the Pistons should build their defensive identity around Tobias Harris and Malik Beasley, right? So that's my only kind of pushback whenever we are. Listen, the Knicks community's doing it right now with Karl Anthony Towns. I literally got off Twitter before we started recording, and I see people trying to like justify Karl Anthony Towns' defense with like some defensive metric stuff. And I'm just like, I watched the game last night. I saw how limited what he was doing was. Like, and so like that's my only point with that. And my only point with Duren and Ausar is you're gonna commit to Ausar. Like, he is gonna be awesome. If they're 100% sure that those two guys can be together, then great. But if there are questions, I think it's at least part of the equation when you look at a Duren extension. Sorry, that was a long. I needed an opportunity to get some of those thoughts off my chest, and your podcast got it. I apologize.
Oh no, it's all good. We love it here. We love your next. I did see the pushback with Pistons fans in the podcast you did with Sam, and like what do you mean they can't play together? But I think the points that you guys have made, especially Sam's been like kind of like hitting his hand on the table with like the spacing thing, and I do agree with him. If neither of them develop a jump shot, then it does become pretty difficult for both of them to space the floor. I think the only thing I would say with that is like any offer you may give Duren may kind of not be in a positive way. Like if you offered him, let's just say 4 for $80. Like he might kind of feel some type of way and just go into restricted free agency. I'd love Duren for 4 for $80 if I'm being honest, because I think it's budget. You mentioned a Nick Claxton. Like if Duren was on $100 million contract, then I know the cap space is going up. A lot of people have pointed out saying like we could possibly find a guy like a Duren that's a rim runner and a lob threat and can protect the paint a little bit. But I think the contract extensions get a little. It's a difficult conversation because all these Pistons fans want to keep everyone on the roster together and not let any of them go. And that's what happens when these rookie contracts kind of expire, and then you want to get good, and everyone wants they want to keep their whole core and add like a Nasri and not give up anybody. It's just like you have to make some difficult decisions in that way. But
I mean, we're not very. I was thinking about this before we recorded because I knew we were going to get into this conversation. This was the big complaint about the draft of Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Ausar Thompson, Ron Holland. It was like, okay, these guys are interesting, but none of them are proven floor spacers or shooters. J.I. has gotten there. Like it was a 30-game sample, but he was over 40%. Ausar and Duren are complete non-shooters. And I think that's the other important thing, Anthony, is there is a difference between non-shooters and bad shooters, or guys that are shooting 30%, 33% from three, but still get guarded and have gravity, right? Like there's major differences there. And right now, with the way Holland's rookie year went as well, this will come into play with one of the guys we're going to talk about, one of the draft prospects we're going to talk about later also. You have 3 complete non-shooters. Now, again, I don't want to just play this side of it because now I feel like I'm getting pegged as like Duren and Ausar can never play together. Trade Duren. I don't want to be that guy. I just want to bring it up as a possible outcome if they commit to both. If you believe that Ausar is eventually going to shoot, then this becomes way less of an issue. Maybe you believe in the creativity of the Pistons coaching staff in figuring it out offensively with 2 non-shooters. I would listen to that. I'll listen to all of those. All I want to do is bring the context to the conversation that in a Jalen Duren extension, I think this is something you have to consider because next summer, you know what we're going to be talking about, Anthony? An Ausar Thompson extension. And so if that's coming 12 months from now, I think it's at least part of the equation. Maybe you decide it doesn't matter. You're 100% sure Duren and Ausar can play together. We're going to pay Duren what it's worth. All I'm saying is, for me, it would be part of the calculation.
I just haven't seen enough to give him big money. Like first 25 games of the season, I was on his ass, and I'll be, I will be very transparent. If you play bad, I'll let you know you're playing bad. You play good, I'll give you praise. I thought the last 40 or 50 games, even in the playoffs, I thought he adapted really well from a game-to-game basis. He's still learning. He's still learning JB's system. Like when he gets, 3 seconds in the lane without guarding, like JB claps. Like they clap when they get those because of that. It's something he teaches. But I mean, I think the Duren conversation is really interesting. Your Ausar point, I think, is valid because you have to make a decision on all of these guys. I just kind of wonder like what the market for a Duran is. And, if it kind of gets into the 20, 25, $26 million range, then I think you kind of have those conversations of him possibly not being a non-shooter. Like I see him working on 15 footers when I go to Pistons games, but like the coaching staff has never really, explored that. I thought, maybe last couple games of the season, they kind of want to explore him, developing a jump shot or a mid-range jump shot. Maybe it's still a work in progress. Maybe he wants to develop a little bit more. Because I mean, if he adds like a good 12 to 15 foot elbow jump shot, that opens up his game completely.
And that's another great point. It doesn't necessarily have to be the 3-point jumper. Maybe it's simply like Asar can do more on the ball stuff, because now if Asar is operating on the ball and he's operating ball screens with Jalen Duren, well, then their floor spacing doesn't matter because they're in the action. I think where this showed up in the Knicks game was because they were both operating off the ball, because the Pistons wanted to attack who? Jalen Brunson. Well, Brunson wasn't guarding either of those guys, so they were bringing Brunson into the action with Malik or Tim or whoever, and then now you had Asar and Jalen Duren both off the ball. Now, that's a very specific playoff scenario, but like it is just something to consider. I think the biggest net rating positive for these two guys isn't the 2-man lineup data, Anthony. It's the 5-man lineup data. So if you look at the regular season 5-player lineups with a minimum of 50 minutes, because if you do too many minutes, like you get to like 3 lineups, right? But they have the top net rating. In that lineup, it's with 2 shooters, Hardaway and Beasley plus Schroeder. They have the 3rd net rating with the 2 shooters and Cade Cunningham. And they have the 5th best net rating with the starting lineup we saw for the majority of the year. I think that is the bigger argument in terms of regular season success with those 2 guys, is actually that in these 5-player lineups, they had some of the best lineups. And so I don't think it can't happen. I just think it's an equation. I think I've landed in the, like, if he got whatever 4 for 100 or something, I think that's probably the happy medium that I've landed on, Anthony. Anything over that, I'm starting to get nervous. If you could get under that, then I think it's a really good number. I'm also like workshopping, like, do you want to pay, like, how is it worked paying centers in this range? Or are you better off either paying a big time center like Jokic, which obviously there's very few of, or just like finagling the center position, getting a variety of centers, go 3 deep at better contracts, like what, just from a team, not even a Piston specific idea, Anthony, just in general, an NBA idea, and team building can be different across the board. Is there an argument to like, just flat out don't pay centers in this range of money? Has that always worked? It'd be interesting I haven't workshopped it enough to give a solid opinion on it yet.
So I was looking back, the last center that the Pistons paid was Andre Drummond. They gave him 5 for 125. That was a long time ago. I think if you can keep Duren like 100 million, under 100 million, I kind of bank on possibly the age, because he's only 21 years old.
Great point.
And maybe he can keep developing. I don't know. Some people think he's a lost cause just because there are certain things defensively that he still constantly does, especially with like his hips not being fully squared up when he is defending. There's little things you can nitpick here and there, but it'll be an interesting conversation. He's the one player where I think more Pistons fans are open to extending. The other guy, which I think this guy, to me, the pushback with the fan base is wild. We'll talk about Jade Ivey and like trade proposals from other media sites, but like in terms of like contract extension with him, like what are you feeling? Because like you look at some guards like in his class, like I'll use Jalen Suggs for an example. Like he got paid, but Jalen Suggs is a really good defender, but he's not really known as a shooter. With Ivy, like, do you think the money could be possibly less with the injury, or do you think that doesn't really go into effect at all?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that the injury in itself is going to affect the number. I think the fact he only played 30 games is the thing here. I was the data collection guy all year for this 24-25 Pistons season. And since the season's been over, I've said, like, when people have asked me, like, what's the most exciting thing about the season? What's the most disappointing thing about the season? To me, the most disappointing thing is we only saw Jaden Ivey for 30 games, and we didn't see him in these high leverage situations during the regular season. We didn't see him in the 6 games of the playoffs. And so the data collection on him is just different, and I always bring it up. I would guess you could win a lot of money trying to bet people what Jaden Ivey shot from 40% or shot from 3 this season at 40.9%. Maybe not Pistons fans, but people outside of the Pistons fan base. And it was on 5 attempts as well, And so, like, we saw growth with the jumper, which is super important, as we've been talking about here. So my bigger thing with J.I. is, like, I feel like I kind of know who Jalen Duren is as a player. And yes, there's still potential upside because he's so young and all of that. With Jay and what his role is going to be, most specifically with Duren, I think I know what his role is going to be. And then it's just like, okay, what is that worth? How much do we believe in that? How does it work within our organization? All of that. With Jaden Ivey, Anthony, you could tell me he ends up the Robin to Cade's Batman, and I see that world. And you could tell me he ends up as the 6th man in the Benedict Mathurin role of the Indiana Pacers, and I would believe that as well. The issue with that is why I have a hard time with the number, because what you pay that guy has a very high variance here. And if you pay Jaden Ivey like he could be a number 2 option and he becomes a 6th man, that's a valuable role, but that's not a very valuable contract. It's probably a negative contract. And so that's why I get a little bit nervous with what the number for JI is.
Yeah, I think you have a great point. I'm with you. I think I know what Duren is going to be in the NBA. I think he's obviously still going to develop, but I have a pretty good understanding of, like, what I think he could possibly be if he fully hits his ceiling and if he just kind of, flattens out.
Like, we would agree, he's probably never like the 3rd option on your team, right? Like he's this rim running, rim finishing, elite offensive rebounding. Like, the upside is probably the defense, right? Like, if the defense continues to take steps and really becomes a positive, like, that's what it is. But he's not going to be Jokic. He's not going to be Şengün. He's not going to be Sabonis in terms of, like, running offense through him in that way. I don't think. Maybe some people still believe that in him, but I don't think he's like that type of focal point of your offense. And that's what I mean, like, where you can kind of see what his role is going to be.
Yeah.
Hold on. Nobody's Jokic. Sorry, that was stupid. Nobody's Jokic. That's not even fair to bring up.
Yeah. You with Duren, you kind of have a pretty good understanding of, like, what he could possibly be. Like, does he get better in DHO situations?
That's true.
So. Like, he's a pretty good passer.
Yep.
But I don't think he's going to take, like, a propel from, like, you mentioned, like, offensively, like a Şengün. Like, Şengün's offense, he's very, very polished. His footwork is great. I think Duren still has room to develop in the post and as a passer and a defender. With Jaden Ivey, my thing with Jaden Ivey is I think he's had the toughest road out of anyone that has been drafted. I mean, only got to play with Cade 12 games his rookie season. Then he had the Monty Williams experience being benched for Killian Hayes. And then he's playing the best ball of his career under JB. And then he gets injured. So it's like, I just don't know if he can actually be that Robin, or, to your point, is he a 6th man? And I think paying him can get a little tricky. Like, are you paying him 25, 26, 27 million, a year, kind of banking on that potential? And if he doesn't hit that potential that you think he is as a number 2 option, and he's just the 6th man, and that contract might be a little bit more difficult to move in the future.
That's what, and to be clear, like, I'm always on the low end of these things, Anthony. Like, I just have this fear. Like, I have this fear of, okay, you end up in cap hell because you've paid out these contracts and all of that. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around the cap going up and what percentage. I always try to use the non-tax MLE as like a gauge for things in terms of what this means. I think for both of these guys, I would love to get them both in the low 20s, like anywhere from 20 to 25. I'm signing right now. Like, I'm game. Let's do it. As soon as you get to 25, then I start to be like, man, like, okay, J.I.'s had some good play, but if he ends up being a six man, like that's more than Malik Monk money, who's probably the best six man for me as from a guard in the NBA. Like, okay, is that going to be okay, or does that end up being a negative contract? How does that work in terms of the Pistons then trying to acquire the second star? Because if he's not the second star, if Ron's not the second star, if Asar's not a second scoring option, I think Asar's going to be awesome. I don't know if he's the second scoring option. He may be the second best player someday. It's just like, that's what I worry about. The last 5 years, Anthony, we've lived in this world of this team who was rebuilding, but didn't have that much like flexibility with some things, specifically the draft pick. They did have cap space. Now they finally have the draft capital back. And I'm terrified that all of a sudden they lose the cap flexibility because they sign these guys to crazy contracts. I don't think Trajan will. My point is, I just wonder if these guys would just rather bet on themselves, right? Like if I'm Jalen Duren, I would say no, like legit, like that's the side I'm on. I would say, I am better than that. I'm going to go prove it, and I'm going to earn more than 22 to 25 a year. If I'm Jaden Ivey, I think I might say the same thing. I play 82 games next year. I'm going to score 20 a game, shoot 38% from three, and I'm going to be worth more than 22 a year. So that's why I have a hard time, is because I don't necessarily see it from the player's side in terms of taking on these contracts and signing them.
Yeah, I know Trajan had said in his presser that we'll talk to them this summer about it. From a team aspect, like if you can get them at around 20 to 23 million, then you do that all day. And
yes.
You don't even think about it, because those contracts will probably be the best contracts in the NBA. The way that all these players are getting paid now, like even like a 6th, 7th, or 8th man on the bench is getting 20 million a year. So if you could get those guys on a team-friendly deal and keep building that way, I think from an organizational standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. From a player standpoint, you're 100% right. Those players, they want to get 30 million. They want to get 35 million. They don't want to, only make, 15 to 20 million or something like that. But it's going to be difficult with all these extensions looming over them with Duren and Ivy. And you touched on Asar next season, which I think Asar, to me, you might get more than both of these guys, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now, I think he's, and I'll be clear. Like I tell people all the time, I hold my own receipts. Asar was not my guy for the Pistons in that draft. I loved him in. I thought there was a gap between him and Asar. I had some of those other guys. I kind of misevaluated who Asar was. Like I got locked in on comparing him as like this true wing. And it's like, okay, well, I don't buy his shooting. So if he's going to be this wing scorer, like that's not it. And I was right about that. What I missed on was all of the other stuff he does at an incredibly high level that is valuable on the floor. I think he's the second most important young guy. We all know who the most important player is.
Yeah.
And luckily he has shown how good he is and what he can be. I think Asar is going to be awesome. Like, I think he's going to be incredible. And so you are going to give him bigger numbers, I think, unless there's like some sort of regression or just like the offense doesn't improve at all, which I just don't think is going to happen, because he's going to actually get an offseason to work on his game. And the intel going back to pre-draft was that he's an incredible worker. I think we're going to see a huge jump from year 2 to year 3 with Asar. So that's the other thing. Like, that's where I struggle to wrap my head around it, Anthony, is, okay, let's say, let's play the high end of stuff. Let's say you give Jalen Duren 28 million and let's just say you give J.I. 24 or 25. And then you come back next year and you give Asar 35. Like, and then where are you at? If none of those guys are your number 2, I don't know, maybe they're not in trouble, but it seems to me like you've given a lot of money to a team that still doesn't have a number 2 option. And then when you get that guy, how much is he going to take, and what situation does that put you in? So that's why I have some restraint with this stuff. And maybe that's too short-sighted. Maybe I can't see the big picture enough, but that's my worry a little bit.
No, I think you have a good reason to be worried, because like if you were to pay all those guys the figures that you just threw out, then you're like, we don't really have a number 2 option next to Cade. Like, we have guys that are talented. They're high draft picks. They're talented, but it's like, I think that's the struggling conversation. I think in an organization is like really valuing what these guys are and what they could possibly be. And it's not something that's 100% foolproof. There's a lot of risk with overpaying a Jaden Ivey or overpaying a Jalen Duren and worrying about what a star could possibly become or not become. So I'm glad we are not the decision makers in this because, man, like I undervalue people so much. Like last year, I did a podcast with Pistons Thoughts, and we both thought that Simone Fontecchio was going to get the back. We're
right
like,
with you.
We thought he was going to get like 15, 20 million. And then it's like his contract's like 2 years, 16. We're like, wow, okay, yeah, we're off.
I thought I've told people, like, again, I hope I do a good job of self-reflecting and recognizing my flaws and where I fall. Some of this contract stuff is definitely one of them, Anthony. Like, and that's where, like, I'm fascinated to see where they get. Because I think at times I just am so nervous about giving a bad contract. But to your point, I thought Fontecchio was going to be like a non-tax MLE guy, and he didn't get that. And then he did not have a good season shooting the ball. And I don't know. We'll see how he bounces back. Shooting sometimes can vary with some of those guys. Like it's another reason where I think like Malik Beasley is going to be fascinating because are there going to be NBA teams out there that look at what he did, which is a historical shooting season, and offer him money? Or are there going to be a bunch of teams that say, no, we're not going to be the team that pays him, a ridiculous amount coming off. It's not an outlier season because he's a really, really good shooter, but we're not going to be the team that pays for a historic shooting season when there's probably going to be a slight regression. But all it takes is one team, Anthony, to say, hey, that level of shooting takes us to the NBA Finals. We'll offer him $15 million a year. And if they offer him that, Detroit, what's their answer? Going back to your first question, now you got to go be an under the cap team, and you have to use almost all of that money under the cap on just Malik Beasley. And so, like, that's where the Pistons offseason could end up really, really fascinating, depending on how their free agents are valued by the rest of the league.
Yeah, it's like I was listening to your podcast with Keith, and when he said OKC, I damn near choked on my water. I was like, please no, because like what Malik did this season was incredible. He was actually like one of my targets because I watched him in Milwaukee. I thought the Lakers thing, he had some personal stuff going on, but just having the green light that he had this year, I think was perfect for him. I think he's the type of player where you give him more just responsibilities. He kind of thrives under those pressure situations. But man, like I don't even want to think about that. I was like,
the nice thing is Brooklyn's the only team that could actually do that right now, right? And so like that's the nice thing for Detroit is most teams' way of acquiring him would be the non-tax MLE, and then obviously Detroit can match that most likely again, assuming they operate over the cap. And if I'm Malik, I'm just like if Trajan, and I assume the organization wants him back. I don't know why they wouldn't. Assuming they're like giving a fair contract offer, offering multi-years security with the money, I just think if you're Malik, you have to be like, this was a great situation for me, like a tremendous situation for me in terms of that freedom and the way he was able to get shots. And theoretically with J.I. next year, he's going to get even more open looks because you get another rim pressure guy, not as good of a passer as Cade, but another rim pressure guy. Asar grows a little bit. So it's like, why not stay in a place that really valued you and just created all of these really, really good looks that he then went out and himself knocked down?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens this summer because I know it's going to be pretty crazy, not only for Pistons fans but just all NBA fans.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if you saw. So I was actually bored this past week, and I read a lot of articles, and I went down the Bleacher Report rabbit hole, which it can always be dangerous. And a lot of people were very up in arms with a trade proposal from Bleacher Report. I'm going to put it on the screen for people that haven't seen it real quick. Give me a second. Look at me technical direct and talk at the same time, man. I don't have a West. I wish I had a West, man. But this was kind of the trade that really got people like really up in arms. So Jaden Ivey, 2 first-round picks for Derek White and Baylor Sherman. So what was kind of like just your overall opinion with, Pistons fans saying this was a good trade, this was a bad trade, or just kind of like valuing Jaden Ivey?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the idea here, right? Like Derek White is a really good basketball player, right? Derek White is better than Jaden Ivey right now. Like Derek White is really good. Here would be my immediate thought though for the Pistons specifically, Anthony. How does this solve the number 2 option for Detroit? You know what I mean? Like, is Derek White, like maybe some people think Derek White is the number 2 guy on a championship team. I mean, in Boston, he hasn't been asked to be that guy, right? Like it's Tatum and Brown. And so I guess here's where I would immediately go with this. Okay, if we're going to do this, if Detroit is going to do this, Anthony, then show me the plan to round out being a win next year team. Because to me, this move is we're going to go title contend next year. At the very worst, 26-27. This move would say to me, Cade is ready right now, which quite honestly, Cade may be ready right now. Like I think there's a lot of data that says Cade is probably ready. Like figure out the turnovers a little bit, the 3-point shooting, the conditioning, and we're ready to go on a title run with him as your best player. But I don't think Cade, Derek White, Asar, Duran, Ron Holland is a championship contender, even in a watered down Eastern Conference next year. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but if you're giving off of Ivy and you're going to give up those first round picks, then what's the other move to go get, I don't know, Trey Murphy, right? Like let's throw out Trey Murphy. Okay, well, what is the plan to go get Trey Murphy then? So then you may actually be a title contender. And some people may not like that. I think Trey Murphy actually might be a number 2 option in this league. Like now there's health stuff, which people threw at me the other day, which is also very fair. But you know what I mean? Like Derek White's in his 30s already. You know, he just turned 30, and so I'm not saying he's on the downward spiral, but to me, this is a win right now move. So then what's the other move that actually makes Detroit a real title contender to win right now?
I agree with everything you said. I think from a Boston perspective, this makes so much sense for them.
Sure.
Because you don't know what's going to happen with Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown had a partial torn meniscus playing in the playoffs. I expect them to still be competitive and just kind of have like, I don't know, a regression year. Maybe they make the playoffs, compete for the play-in. Maybe they win the lottery. Who knows?
Yeah.
Dallas did it. From a Boston perspective, I know I went on a whole podcast I'm not even kidding you, like 2 hours. Like why?
Hey, we'll all be okay with it if somehow we get PJ Washington for for cheap because they can't play Anthony Davis, their 2 centers, and Cooper Flagg. They may try it. Like who knows? Maybe PJ will play point, but it is kind of interesting. Real quick on this, I think the Boston guys most likely to be traded are Drew Holiday and Kristaps for what it's worth. So,
yeah, same here. You look at their cap situation; it's terrible.
Yes.
But from a Boston perspective, I would want a Jaden Ivey because it's like I got my Drew Holiday replacement. Because that's the way I'm thinking. Because like he's 35, he's on a big deal. They probably want to move that. For a Pistons perspective, you're absolutely right. If you're trading a guy that was a number 5 pick and 2 first. That's basically three first-round picks for a guy that is, in my opinion, I think he's an elite role player that's just a good glue guy for Boston. Does he put up the same stats here in Detroit? I'm not entirely sure. I think the way Boston plays is like just tailored to what he does of just being a 3-point shooter, putting the ball on the floor, and just a really good scrappy defender. I don't know if I would do this. And I would feel confident that, you could put Detroit in the same conversation as the Indianas, the Clevelands, the Bostons. I just don't know. I think they have talent. I think Cade's that guy. But I think this is a little bit too much for my liking to get a Derek White and a Baylor Sherman.
Yeah, I mean, and I think White would be a really nice fit. Like he's a great fit in the backcourt next to Cade because he takes all the defensive matchups. He knocks down threes at a really high rate. He can handle I'm not trying to say he's not a good fit in Detroit. My only pushback or my biggest pushback to this would be, okay, then what is the move forward now? Because now you're selling out on potentially a number 2 option in Jaden Ivey. Again, emphasis on the word potentially. Right? Like he may not be that. There's a real world where he doesn't become that. We just talked about it. If you are someone that just is saying, I'm not saying you, Anthony, but just to people in general, if you're sold, if you have enough data to know right now who Jaden Ivey is and who he isn't, and you think he's going to be a 6-man off the bench guy, well, then this trade looks a little bit different, right? Because now you're trading him. Even then, though, to go this kind of stuff, especially the draft picks for Derek White or somebody else, to me, this is we are ready to compete at the highest level. So I want to know the other move that gets you there. Like, I want to know what gets them the number 2 option that's going to make them a real contender in the East.
I think my pushback also is, if I'm going to be giving up Jaden Ivey in 2 first, I'd like it to be a guy that I know that can at least score me 20 points a game.
Sure.
Like, if that's the conversation we're having, like, nothing against Derek White. I think he's a really good player. I do. But I think it's, you have to look at Boston's system too, having a Jason Tatum and a Jaylen Brown taking the ball pressure off you, and you're just kind of filling into that, third option of, just being a good, like, I think of like when Denver had KCP and Bruce Brown, like just those kinds of roles where like they had their stars and then they had a third option as like a role player to just like really be effective and be that defender, be that glue guy to take the pressure off the stars. That's what I think Derek White is.
I actually, that's a really good point. I agree. If you tell me Jaden Ivey and 2 first-round picks for a guy who I truly believe is going to go average 20 plus a game or has proven it, I'm a much more palatable to that conversation, right? Like, because now you take the contract conversation off the table and, you have your number 2 option. Maybe Asar becomes the number 3 offensive option. Maybe Ron Holland grows into number 3 offensive option, all of that. To be clear, I have said in my stances that I wouldn't make any of these type of moves until the deadline next year. Yeah. I would not trade any of these young guys, Jalen Duren included, okay, at least until the deadline next year, whenever we see some more things. Keith Black-Trudeau always brings it up to me, and it's a great point. When I talk about it being a little bit nervous on running it back and just having all of the same people, and Keith always reminds me, Bryce, we barely saw Cade, J.I., Asar, Harris, Duren together. I think it was like 2 games and 7 minutes or something like that between Asar's blood clots and Jaden Ivey's broken leg. I'm willing to be more patient and waiting on some sort of big move, because to me, this is a big move, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is 2 future first-round picks. You just got your draft capital back. Here's the other thing, Anthony. If you want to be a player for Devin Booker or player X, whoever it is, you're going to need all of your first-round picks, most likely. So by moving 2 of these for someone like Derek White, who I think is awesome, you are probably hindering your ability to go get Devin Booker or whoever, unless you include Asar or Ron or Jalen Duren or something like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you're going to make a big move, like, you probably want someone that is proven in a number 2 option. And I think you do wait at the deadline to get more data that way, because I think I saw the same stat you did. I think Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, Kate, they think they played 2 minutes together all season.
Yeah, it may have been 2 minutes. Yeah, I said 2 games. It may have been 2 minutes. I'm on the website right now. Let me see if I can get it pulled up real fast here. Gosh dang it, I'm on 5-player lineups, not 3-player lineups.
Yeah, I think I saw Koo. Koo had a stat that said they only played like 2 minutes all season together or something crazy like that. I was like, wow, I didn't know it was that bad.
So this says Cunningham, Ivy, Thompson, 4 games played, 9 minutes.
All right.
Their net rating is amazing. Their net rating is a negative 58.7.
Oh, wow.
45.5. I mean, it's 9 minutes, right? Like, I mean, that's like 9 minutes. Shooting variances are all over the place in 9 minutes of basketball. That's why I don't even love like single series playoff net rating, because it's like, if one team gets really hot, that's going to completely skew some of the net rating stuff, or, skew an offensive rating really high if, whatever, somebody comes in and shoots lights out for, 5 minutes and there's 25 minutes of data. Well, that's going to skew the data pretty good. And so, I'm always willing to slow play it. I think your listeners will realize I'm very risk averse right now in terms of just like, and the thing is, they have the most important thing, Anthony. They got the face of the franchise. They know it. He showed it this year. He's incredible. I understand wanting to speed things up now and not waste years of Cade Cunningham's career. I completely get it. Just, I think waiting till the deadline is okay, in my opinion.
I'm hand shy for a completely different reason. because like when we during the Andre Drummond era,
Yeah.
when they went all in and they overpaid players that just were like, okay, like you paid Reggie Jackson at the time, you gave him like 5 years, 80 million, which would be equivalent to like 5 for 150 right now. Like they just overpaid everyone. We had no cap flexibility. We missed on the draft, and it's just like I don't want to repeat of that. So I'm like, because I know a big move is coming, Bryce. Like I could feel it coming in the next year or two. I'm just nervous what the hell it's gonna be.
And to be clear, Anthony, it should be coming, right? I mean, the ideal situation is J.I. becomes the number 2 option, Ron becomes the number 3 option, and figures out the jumper. Asar is just like this two-way stud. Duran, continues to grow defensively, and like you drafted your core 5 players. Like that's the ideal outcome and would be absolutely incredible. I have a hard time believing that you did. And if they do, then Troy Weaver ends up getting a lot of credit for drafting 4 of those 5 players, by the way. But I assume, here's what I'm afraid of, is you trade the wrong one. That's what I'm scared of, or you trade for a guy and before you know what kind of position you need. Like, what if you trade for a wing and then it turns out Ron and Asar are awesome and can be the wings together and you actually needed like an off-ball guard or whatever, right? So I think another 50 games of data for these guys. Ron in his 2nd year, Asar with an off season, Ivy's 4th year, like hopefully he stays healthy. Duran, like playing incredible down the stretch and in the playoffs. Can he replicate that coming into the next season? You brought up how you think Jaden Ivey's had it hard. I always defend Jalen Duran with this. Those guys both had 3 coaches in 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. Their 2nd year, they come in and both had things they needed to grow on. Jaden Ivey's the one that got sent to the bench by Monty Williams for Killian Hayes. For Killian. Jalen Duran got to do what, Anthony? He got to start. So if I'm Jalen Duran, I'm looking at that situation going, man, J.I. is not doing what he's supposed to do. He got benched, which means if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, I get benched. Well, Duran never got benched. So in his mind, I'm assuming he's going, well, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. I don't need to change anything. I don't need to get better at anything. I'm still starting every single game. Why would I change something in year 2? And so I always give him that little bit of caveat as well. Then he comes back this year, and obviously it clicked after 25 games, whether it was JB calling him out, whether he matured and figured it out himself or whatever. And we saw real growth this year from him.
I thought the Monty year with Duran, a lot of the bad habits slipped over into this season, and it took about 25, 30 games for him to kind of like wake up, as you mentioned. Because you look at Jalen Duran's stats under Monty versus this year, like his stats look a lot better, but the context of that was they weren't winning too many basketball games. Like you look at it's like his free throw shooting was damn near 80%, and it kind of took a dip this season, which I was kind of surprised by.
It was weird, yeah.
You're 100% right. Like he wasn't held accountable under Monty Williams, but Jaden Ivey was. So yeah. Obviously different players. Coaches have their favorites. Like you're a teacher, I'm sure you have your favorite students.
Absolutely.
You don't like the kids that are like screwing around all the time.
And maybe, I mean, it's hard to give Monty the benefit of the doubt from that one season in Detroit, but maybe he felt he could handle JI a certain way and had to handle JD a certain way based on their personalities or whatever. Like, I don't know. Like there's other context to it as well. Just that always sticks with me. Again, in a defense of Jalen Duran in terms of maybe why it took him a little while to figure it out. And what you said there with the 25, 30 games, I'm glad you brought up because I also see Detroit took off when Jaden Ivey got hurt. Like he was the issue. And I'm sure his net ratings look awful compared to everybody else's. It's like, or this was an organization that had lost for 4 straight seasons, was coming off a disastrous dumpster fire of a 14-win season with new players, and we're kind of picking up the pieces, trying to figure out who they were, what they were, and getting kind of things figured out amongst themselves. And they were going to take off either way after that got settled through 25, 30, half the season.
Yeah, I mean, you go from a 14-win season to a 44-win season. I think everyone on the roster developed bad habits. Yeah. And it was just up to JB and his coaching staff to just kind of like get rid of any doubt, any bad habits that they had. And I think they did a pretty good job doing it.
I agree.
Doing that. But I know we touched on it at the top of the podcast, but the Mark Stein reporting with Naz Reid and Miles Turner. So I kind of want to like spin this question. Out of like those two players that were mentioned, who do you think would probably be more realistic for the Pistons to attain this free agency?
I think Nas, just because while I said I don't think Minnesota would let him go, you brought up a good point. It maybe depends on how they feel about Julius Randle and what happens with that situation. Indiana is about to play in the NBA Finals. You can't let your starting center walk when your center situation is a little bit like Anthony. They were playing Tony Bradley in this series, and then like all due respect to Thomas Bryant, because he came out and played huge in Game 6 and hit some threes. Like I just think because of their situation, it would be really hard for Indiana to let Miles Turner walk unless there's a path to another center that I'm. Listen, when we do mock drafts over on Game Theory, we almost always draft a center for them just to give them a backup. If they go into the offseason, they don't have a starter or a backup, that seems a little bit problematic to me. So I just think Nas, because it may be more likely that Minnesota would let him walk, or if it's a sign in, however it would have to work, I think it's more possible that he is just allowed to leave his current team compared to Turner.
I think Turner, and maybe we talked about how we're like both like not the best in terms of like evaluating contracts. I think Turner could get $30 million a year easily.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Indiana wants to probably keep him at all costs. Like to your point, like Tony Bradley was like a one-time Piston for like 10 minutes during the Troy Weaver era before he waved them, stretched and waved them.
Part of the reason they're backups is because Wiseman was probably going to play, another former Piston legend, and so they did have some injury stuff. But if I'm not mistaken, I think even those guys that got hurt I know Wiseman. Yeah, and Bryant, both unrestricted free agents. Bradley, Isaiah Jackson's a restricted free agent, so he technically could still stay around and be a backup there. But
yeah, I forgot, man. They had really bad luck this year with their bigs. So Isaiah Jackson, man, that kid's got a high motor. Like I completely forgot about him. But I like Miles. Like I was looking like really early. I was like, oh, he's a free agent. That could be interesting for the Pistons, depending on like what happens this season. This is like way before Malik and all those guys went crazy. This is like maybe like first week in the season. I'm looking at possible stretch fives, because like outside of like Stu, like Durant just wasn't bringing it. I was like, maybe that's an option. I think it's a little bit unrealistic to try to get a Miles Turner, because I feel like you'd have to give up a lot. It'd probably be a sign and trade, and then like what happens with like Malik, what happens with Dennis. Like you're going to have to move a lot of parts financially to make that work.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. Or if you want to open up the cap space, I think at this point to truly be a player for Turner, you'd almost have to move Stu's money elsewhere or Tobias Harris's. But again, whenever you start getting into those guys' money compared to like Fontecchio, it becomes harder because it's either Brooklyn or you have to find a trade exception. And Stu, even at $15 million, there's just not going to be as many of those trade exceptions, right? Because if you're trying to open up cap space, you're trying to trade it where you're not getting any money back for those guys. And so I do think Turner's just going to, I think it would be difficult. It'd be interesting if like Indiana facilitated a sign and trade for Turner. Like I don't see how they don't value him enough to bring him back. And I will say, like, I didn't think he was great in the Knicks series. I thought he was awesome in the first two series of the playoffs. I thought in the Knicks series, he really struggled with Cat. Cat's obviously an incredible offensive player. So I'm interested to see how Turner looks in the finals. Like that may determine a little bit of just like how robust that market is in terms of the AAV he ends up signing for.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have his hands full with Chet and Hartenstein and all those guys.
That's a squad.
Man, that's going to be a fun series. I can't wait.
Yep.
I can't wait. Nas, I think, is more realistic. I know you kind of touched on it, because I think he would fit on this roster like a glove. I mean, I've listened to your podcast with Amari. Like, fans always mention we need a stretch four. We need a stretch four. Like, Nas kind of fits that bill. I don't think his AAV will be as much. I don't know if you saw that like leaked conversation he had with the bettor saying I'm about to get $100 million a year.
I did not see that.
Like some better like said, man, you missed me on my points, and like you like went back and forth with like some random guy saying like, oh, like, you know, you cost me money, and called the guy broke, which was really funny and entertaining actually to kind of read. But like, honestly think he's way more realistic than Miles Turner. I think Miles, like, you have to move a lot of parts, and I kind of like the fit with Nas, and I've been high on him probably since I did my pre-draft stuff during the Sekou draft. Like, I wanted him in the second round, and he goes undrafted, and I was like, shit.
Yeah, no, he offensively he would bring a real interesting, and like again, like you move him into, you know, maybe obviously he'd come off the bench next year. I assume he'd come off the bench, you know, and then he supplants Tobias Harris after 1 year. Maybe he does it this year. Maybe Tobias would be willing to take a backseat. I don't know. And this is where someone like Asar, Ron's development, honestly, JI's development defensively, JD's, like you get Nas in there, and if you have the right, you know, like not necessarily known for his defense, but if you have these really good wing defenders, you have some rim protection, stuff like that, then you just let his offense cook, and he would be really interesting. You know, like they're another team. I'm not great with sign and trade. I do not like try to parade myself as a CBA expert at all, but like, I wonder what else it would take. Like, I wonder how, like, Schroeder would make sense in Minnesota to me. So, like, is there a double sign and trade? Like, I don't even know if that's possible. I need Kyle Metz to, like, let me know how these mechanisms work. But, I mean, you wouldn't do that 1-for-1, but, like, is there a starter there of Schroeder somehow ends up in Minnesota, Nas somehow ends up in Detroit? And that would be interesting to me, because I think him and Stu would be awesome together. He could still play with Duran. He plays with Asar. Like, everybody plays with Cade, so that's not even a question. Like, Naz Reid is really good, man. Like, I think he can really score the basketball. So he would be interesting.
Yeah, him and Ron just have to hug it out if he did get traded. Because I think they would. Like that. I watched that game recently, and I'm still watching. I'm like, man, why the hell did he get mad? Like, he didn't do anything.
It's I don't know. There's so much of that in the NBA. I'm sure they would figure it out. But
oh man, I do not miss playing like AAU basketball, because at least once a game someone would just like have like kids just sucker punching them because they got fouled hard. It's just like, man, like chill out.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yep.
I officiated an AAU game where one of the parents came on the court and punched a kid, and I was like, bro, like, I'm never doing this again.
No, absolutely. No. I coached one AAU tournament. I was like, yeah, this is not for me. Like, this is not the environment that I'm best suited in. So I will pass on those opportunities.
Then you get like best there from the parents when their kid gets a foul. It's just like, you kind of reached in.
Yeah.
I wanted to having you on here talking NBA draft, because I don't really get to talk NBA draft with a lot of people. And there was a guy that I mentioned to you. We talked at the top of the podcast, like a Maxime Renault.
Yeah.
And I know you wrote a piece on your Substack about him. Do you think he could possibly be there at 37 for the Pistons, or do you think it's a trade-up situation for them?
Yeah, so I mentioned in that video breakdown that I had him as a solid first-round pick. He's in the top 30 on my personal board. I've talked to scouts who like have him really high. And so I wonder if he ends up falling into the second round. You know, you see, I mentioned in that for the series that I'm doing, I'm just using the Rookie Scales consensus board. I think he's 33 on that. And so that takes to account The Athletic, ESPN, No Ceilings, like all of the best NBA draft people out there that make their boards public. And so I'm going off of that, but I would not be surprised if Renault ends up going earlier. And so then it would be a trade up scenario, right? And what would that take? You know, would Trajan be willing to take 37, package it with something, and get to one of those Brooklyn picks, right? I think Brooklyn has, is it 24 and 25 or 25 and 26 and 27, right? So like, I think there you probably have a better chance. And really all the guys we're going to talk about, I think, have the potential to go in the first round. I wouldn't be surprised if a skilled big like Maxime ends up, you know, as a first round pick. I'm not anticipating him falling to 37. This is the guy, Anthony. I don't get very emotional about Piston stuff. If he's there at 37 and Trajan does not take him, that will be that will elicit a reaction out of me that won't be overly positive.
Man, I used to like really dive deep into the drafts because I used to love it, but I just don't have the time like I used
It's a
to.
lot, man.
Dude, it's so much film, like going back and watching games. But he's the guy I turned on the tape and I'm like, man, I love this kid. Like just the way he can, bang down low in the post, finish with either hand, protect the rim a little bit. Like I'm watching, I'm like, I see a little bit of like a younger Brooke Lopez. Like that's who I see a little bit.
He's really, really interesting. I think Brooke's probably going to protect the rim at a higher level than Maxime, but I think Maxime is like in the same way, just like a positional defender, right? Like he's always in the right position. I love that you mentioned both hands. Like that's a big difference for him compared to like a Ryan Cockbrenner, who I just edited my breakdown that I'm going to have on him over on the Substack. That video will come out Monday morning. I think I have it scheduled for. And Cockbrenner actually struggles using his left hand on both ends of the floor, and it puts him in tough spots where I think Maxime is really, really good at it. And then it's really the offense. Like if you're excited about Renault, it's because there's a chance he really shoots it and spaces the floor. And then he also has some other skill, like he puts it on the deck, he moves well. But the biggest thing I highlighted in that video breakdown, Anthony, was it's not just pick and pop with Maxime. Like he can move off the ball. He'll be able to stand in the corner. He'll be able to relocate. Like he understands being an off the ball offensive player, which now for like Detroit specifically, now whenever you want to run a Cade, a Sar pick and roll, it's space. There are literally 3 dudes out at the 3-point line that understand what to do out there. And so I just think it would be, as a third center with Dern and Stewart, I think he would be the perfect changeup or curveball for those 2 guys. Like I would be so excited about that center group of those 3 guys.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably my favorite prospect, like so far. I mean, I was watching. I'm trying to think who I was. I think I was watching Hugo Gonzalez last night.
Yeah. You found some film where he actually played, because that's not easy to do. It's like impossible to find. I know he had a game recently where he finally played quite a few minutes, but it was a struggle all year with Hugo, because it's like, what am I supposed to do with this? He played 6 minutes in a blowout. Like this is impossible. Yeah. So he's here at the end of the year. In fairness, here at the end of the year, he has his last 2 games. He's played 20 plus minutes. So there's some better stuff out there now.
Yeah, I went down the rabbit hole, found some older stuff, which was like, interesting. But I really love Maxine. If they trade up for him, I'm really not mad at all. There's another player you mentioned, Ryan Kalkbrenner, who's another center out of Creighton. Why don't you tell the people that are watching right now why he could possibly be a good fit with the Pistons?
Yeah, so like to be clear, I have Maxime higher than Kalkbrenner on my board, but in general, that would be going against the grain, I think. Like I know Sam lots of times talks about Kalkbrenner as a first-round pick, and so funny enough, I don't know that we've ever actually mocked him in the first round over there, but I think maybe he's a little bit higher. Both of these guys are multi-year college players in big conferences. He is massive, like he 7'2", 250, something like that, measured well at the combine. Defensive big, drop coverage big, which I highlight in the video that, like I said, will be out on Monday. And that if he comes to Detroit, this is most likely a drop coverage defender. And so it's going to put pressure on K, J.I., whoever, to get over screens and navigate back, because this is actually the Brooke Lopez defensive comp I have in terms of how he provides rim protection, how he plays in ball screens, those type of things. Offensively, ball screen guy, with his size, offensive rebounds, all of that. The upside is there are people who believe in the shooting and the potential floor spacing. You have some of the numbers up here on the screen. 34% from 3. It was low volume. I think career, he's like 70% from the free throw line on a whole bunch of attempts throughout his career. So, that's a big thing with him, is if he does eventually space the floor, then he becomes real valuable. I have some other concerns in terms of like his athleticism, his reaction time, and some of those type of things, and how that plays out on the NBA floor. But I think I end the breakdown saying at 37, I think he'd be a great pick as long as Maxime is not on the board.
Well, one of my buddies covers the Celtics, and I was talking about him, and he was just like, "Oh, you want like Walmart Luke Cornett then?" And
Okay.
I was like, yeah, he like this guy seems like a Boston Celtic now.
Yep.
Now that I think about it, like he just seems like a Celtic, 100%. I watched him and like versus Maxime versus him. I see what you're talking about with like the reaction time. Being 7'2", I think does help him, especially
100%. You're absolutely right, Anthony.
blocking shots and stuff like that. I like his ability to stretch the floor, but I think there are some, the bigs in this class do a pretty good job, I think, of, stretching the floor for the most part, like the more like centers and power forwards that you look in this class.
Real quick, so Cockburner has a 9'4" standing reach. Maxime has a 9'2". So there is a couple inches difference there. And Maxime was like 20 pounds lighter as well. So just a couple things to note that's the biggest thing I take out of the draft combine is just seeing some of those measurements and some of that stuff, especially for bigs.
Yeah, I mean, like if he's there at 37, I'm not complaining at all because, like, to your point, I see a lot of people mock him in the late first round, and if you really buy into the potential of him getting better with his reaction time, finishing with either hand, which he does kind of struggle with at times, it'll be interesting to see what happens when he goes up a guy like a Zach Edey, for example, because he's just tall, just as big. Yep. How are you gonna use your size and your weight to go up against guys that are just as big as you? In college, I don't really think he had that issue at all.
Yep. No, I agree.
So we have one more guy, which I probably shouldn't fall in love with guys like this because we have some on the roster. Adu Thiru out of Arkansas. He did play at Kentucky, but obviously he's following John Calipari to Arkansas. But I don't know if you've had too much time of like watching film on him. Like, why should Pistons fans maybe be excited if he's there at 37?
Yeah, actually, I dropped his video breakdown yesterday on the Substack. So all three of the guys that we're talking about, two of them are out, Maxime and Adu, and then, like I said, Cockburner will be on Monday. The arrow is really interesting because he can't shoot. Like the floor spacing is an issue, and I mentioned it in the video. College teams are implementing we're not going to guard you, we're going to close out short, we're going to stand at 15 feet strategy. So that NBA teams are going to do it as well. Just as far as a measurement wingspan, I have it again in the video, but him and Ron are similar, like height, wingspan, standing reach measurements. There's a half inch here, quarter inch there, stuff like that. Like one of them had a little longer wingspan, the other one was shorter, but then their standing reaches ended up similar. So that's what you're looking at in terms of just like that type of size profile. Off my eyes, I would say Adu is a little more built than Ron, but sometimes that stuff can be deceiving a little bit. Strong physical downhill driver, super athletic. There's an offensive rebound that he has in that game. There's a reverse finish out of the dunker spot. Arkansas actually used him a lot as like a ball screen guy. So he could pick and pop, and then he would attack the space. He would catch like in a short roll and then attack the rim. Got to the free throw line a ton. You have the percentage there, but it was really the amount of free throw attempts he got this last season. And then obviously the defensive end, like the ability to guard and be versatile and be disruptive. Like that's kind of the pitch, which at 37, I'm like you, Anthony. I think he's a awesome get at 37. I have him higher than that on my board. All three of the guys we're talking about are guys that I have in a potential first round tier. I don't know that I love him for Detroit when you're already trying to implement Asar and implement Ron, and you have, really, Anthony, non-floor spacing bigs. Like Duran doesn't or can't shoot, and Stu didn't shoot a lot. And so I think it could be interesting trying to implement that. Somebody pushed back to me, and this was fair. You're taking him as a second round pick. just send him to the Motor City Cruise for a year, let him develop stuff. And then maybe a year from now, the roster is ironed out. Maybe Ron's figured out the jumper, whatever. And, he's not going to make the rotation next year anyway. So maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe you don't make a decision on like this based on short-term views. And I understand that side of things.
Oh man, he would kill guys in the G League. Oh my God. Like his motor, I'm watching him. I was like, I'm a sicko, Bryce. I fall in love with these guys that can't shoot, that have defensive potential. Like, Mr. Ray actually put me onto him. He's in the chat. He's like, you need to watch Thero, and I watched a couple of games of him this past week, and I'm just watching him. I was like, man, the defensive instincts are like next level. The energy, the athleticism, getting to the free throw line, which I'm glad you brought up. Like, just his ability to be fearless and just go up. Doesn't care if there's a guy that's 7 foot. He's just gonna crash the glass or get there get there in a way where he just uses his athleticism the best as he can. But like if 37, if he's there, I might think about it. But at the same breath, it's like you got Ron, you have Asar. Like how many of these guys do you want?
So I think it depends on how the board falls, but I think I'm with like at 37, if they take Adu Thiero, and especially if Maxime isn't there, I'm not going to be mad at it. I think it's a great talent bet at 37, right? And again, like, so here's how I would like almost tier these guys out. If they traded up for Maxime, depending on what the capital was, right? Like if they go 37 plus a future first, I'm not going to like that. But if they do 37 and whatever that takes, assume it's within reason to get to one of those Brooklyn picks or wherever and draft Maxime, I would be happy with that. Like that's where I'm at with Maxime. Like I just think he's a really good player. And again, I think that center group would be a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I don't love that idea as much with Cockbrenner or Adu. For Detroit specifically, I don't love that as much. Now, if they draft either one of those guys at 37, cool. If they feel like they need to trade up to 31 to draft Adu, like they trade a future second or something, right? And for whatever reason, Minnesota doesn't, I don't know, whatever. Then I'm okay with. I don't know that I would trade into the first round for Cockbrenner or Thiero. I would for Renault. I guess is kind of just a small little tier break between these guys.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like Maxine is probably the one guy that I've watched that could either be early first or possibly a very late first. I don't know why I said early first, but hey, you never know. To early second is the only guy that I brought on this list today that I'd be comfortable trading up with. Someone said Danny Wolf. Absolutely not. No.
Why not? What's wrong with Danny Wolf?
I can't, man. Like it's not that I don't think Danny Wolf is talented. My issue is I don't want to be scrolling the timeline and I can already see like Cade turns it over, Danny turns it over. Because like Danny's turnovers, I was just
they're an issue.
He's flashy and I love watching him, but it's just like, man, like the turnovers with me are just like they kind of take me back. Like I like him as a player, but I'm not trading up a future first to get a Danny Wolf.
I was gonna say to get in Danny Wolf range, I would not do like no. I would not like that's my thing. And again, like I don't know what it would take to get from 37 to what I'm talking about at the end of the first. Again, I want to be clear. I'm not trading a future first to go get Maxime Renault at 27 or 28. Like I'm assuming it's 37 and a future second or something. Like I guess I would have to know the trade before I should say that I'm really in on that. There's none of those guys. I mean, like the name, like if Rasheer Fleming really fell, I would trade up into a mid-20s range. I'm just kind of a Rasheer Fleming guy. Like I think he's really, really good. And I think he would fit into an exact role for this team that's probably more valuable than Renault, to be honest. Like the counter to trading up to get Renault, I can hear people saying it, and I think I would agree with them and understand it is that's your third center. Like you're going to trade up to get a third center. And that's why the value I was going to give up to get there, I wouldn't want it to be a lot. And that's probably why it's not realistic, is I probably wouldn't be willing to give up what it would take to get to 27 or whatever to actually draft him. So,
yeah, like I'm looking on Tankathon right now. They have Rasheer Fleming, which Tankathon is not the outlier. But but they have him 24 going to the Thunder. That would be ideal for them.
Yeah.
And then they have Maxey and Renault going 27 to the Brooklyn Nets, which
they do. Interesting.
So, I mean, hey, maybe that Brooklyn pitch that you had, maybe you go and ask Brooklyn what they want for one of their lottery picks. Maybe they covet a guy like a Marcus Sasser. You never know.
Yeah, so that's what would be interesting to me is just like what it would take. I would love to know what it would take. Like OKC traded 5 seconds to get Dylan Jones last year, but that wasn't trading up. That was a straight like trading into the first round. Yeah. What was the Sasser trade? Didn't they trade up to draft Sasser?
I'd have to look. I know they traded up to 25. I think it was Boston's pick because he was a first round pick. So they traded with the Celtics.
Yeah. And it looks like second rounders.
Yeah.
But that was probably Sasser was what, like 25?
Yeah.
And Detroit probably was at 31 that year. So we're talking about 6 spots or something like that. Okay. So maybe it is just like I would 37 to 27 be interesting. It's probably similar type draft capital, right? A couple of future seconds to do that. And Brooklyn may be willing to do it because they have like 17 first round picks this year. So it's like, hey, if we can take one of these and turn them into some future seconds, it might be worth it. So.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think San Antonio is gonna drop down to take all Brooklyn's first. Like I just don't see it. Like because I saw a report that they're trying to go up to 2 because Dylan Harper, and then they're saying, "Oh, give us Cam Johnson for a lottery pick." And I was just like, "Man, like this time of year, man, like I'm sure you see all the NBA draft like trade proposals and the trade up. It gets kind of funny."
Well, I mean, here's the thing though. Once Luka got traded out of nowhere, it opened the floodgates for, hey, this is a crazy trade idea. Well, so was Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers until it happened. And so all it takes is people valuing things that are completely against everybody. I was looking at Tankathon now here. So, Chaz Lanier is a name that people have brought up to me to do in the future. Kobe Brea, Alex Tui, Drake Powell. The big out of Penn State, Niederhauser is another one. Mm-hmm. Those will be some of the next few that I probably dive into. So
yeah, I didn't think I'd get into draft this year because we didn't have a first round pick, but I was like, man, I can't stay away.
It always listen. They're right on the brink of like where things aren't as interesting. You get you get past like 40 and it starts to get, especially at 45, but Detroit enough guys stayed in that it's just like, okay, top 40 and I can still find some guys that I'm interested by and I'm into a little bit. So they stayed in the range. If they were at 57, Anthony, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation.
I don't think we'd have anyone in the live chat right now, like give me a list of prospects to watch. It's funny because I did some like high school stuff for a company here in Michigan, and a lot of the guys in the 2026 class, I watched in high school.
Oh, nice.
Like Trey McKinney, I watched a ton. Watched Darius Acuff before he transferred to IMG, which if you know who his uncle is, you know exactly why he transferred down to Florida. But man, we even had Monty's son, which I covered. He's gonna be, man, that kid's gonna be good, like really good. Like Elijah Williams, man, it's just kind of crazy. Like you watch these high school kids, and you don't know if they're gonna be NBA players, and then like Michigan had like a good crop of them, which it's honestly like really just crazy with like when you watch high school tape and then you're doing like draft evals on this kid on these guys, like watching Darius. I was like, yeah, man, that kid is just, he's gonna be a dog.
I actually started my 2026 board the other day. I had some free time, felt like I was in a good place with the 25 class. The playoffs are slowing down. Obviously, we're in Pistons off season already, so I watched the top 10 high school recruits. And Nate Ament and Cam Boozer, both Boozers. Caden's not a top 10 guy. Darian Peterson, DeBansa, all of those guys. And then took the guys that, left this class and will be in the 2026 draft and started putting a board together already. Just because as soon as the draft happens, Anthony, people are going to be ready for the 2026 mocks and 2026 conversation. It happened really, like the cycle always continues. So
it is. It like I can't imagine just covering the draft like 365. Like how Sam does it, how a guy I had on here, Hoop Intellect, does it. Like I was like, man, like you have to be in the trenches doing drafts. Like it's honestly just staying up to date if they're going back to college or they're going to go in the draft, they're gonna go to the G League undrafted. Like it's just the whole thing.
I just saw my guy O2 while we were recording reported that Chaz Lanier has a workout with the Pistons on the 2nd. So draft workout time reporting.
Oh boy.
Yeah, right.
So they're working out Tim Hardaway Jr.'s replacement. Got it. No, I'm not reporting that. Because I know some people are. We have one more little question, which I've had people on during the summer. If you could add one free agent in this class to target, who are you going with?
Okay, so the name I feel like I brought up a lot, so I'll go ahead and bring it up here, is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I like Nickeil Alexander-Walker a lot. Now, I think that I had this conversation the other day. It's an interesting conversation of like, can he do enough of what Beasley did from the 3-point line that then his defense is worth? I would rather him be like a Tim Hardaway Jr. replacement than a Malik Beasley replacement. But then it's like, okay, well, how does all of this shake out if you have K, J.I., Beasley, and you bring back Dennis Schroeder? If you don't bring back Schroeder, do you have enough ball handling? So I understand that one. Another name I'll throw out at you, I think Sam Merrill is really good. Can really shoot it. I think he holds his own defensively. So those are the two guys kind of on the, I know they're not wings per se, like they don't have that same height as off-ball players is what I'll call them primarily, even though Na has a little bit on the ball. But off-ball players that kind of interesting to me would be Na and Sam Merrill.
I have two guys that are like super, super under the radar.
Okay.
The first one is Jake LaRavia. Which
he's very high on my list as well. Just so love it.
And he said he wouldn't be opposed to playing for the Pistons recently. So that's someone where I'm looking at, like, he's young, he kind of fits like the core age, cheap, maybe backup stretch 4, who knows. Defensively it's kind of like it's not the best, but I mean, as a backup stretch 4, I think I'd be opposed to it. The other guy is Chris Boucher.
Okay, interesting.
Took kind of a leap, spreading the floor a little bit in Toronto. Who knows what happens with them? Someone just put in the chat that apparently they're going big fish hunting this summer, which I don't know. Their whole timeline, their team just confuses the hell out of me. I don't know about you.
We get so much hate on game theory whenever we bring that up. Raptors fans hate us. I think they're probably the fan base that's most offended by us because we're just like, interesting accumulation of talent. No clue how it all works together unless Masai puts it, unless they do. They take them, they consolidate them into one big star. So be interesting if they're able to convert on it.
Yeah, who knows? Like, as soon as I saw that they traded for Ingram, I was like, you have RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, is RJ Barrett going to get traded? Like, Emmanuel, like, there's one basketball. Like, what are we doing here, you guys? But
multiple ball handlers makes sense. I agree with it. I understand it. That's a little bit of overkill. And the other thing is, I agree with the multiple ball handler thing. The thing is, there's still only one ball. So those multiple ball handlers have to be able to play off the ball at times and doing it willingly and successfully as part of that equation.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like what they do. Someone brought it to my attention. Like they lost Kawhi, they lost Pascal. Like that was their free agency move of getting like Brandon Ingram, because they've just lost guys that they thought they were going to resign and they didn't. But definitely like the Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I feel like a lot of Pistons fans are really high at him. Who knows what happens with Beasley? Could be a possible Beasley replacement. I mentioned Al Horford last week, and I got like pitchforks
What?
Yeah.
I was literally about to end the episode with like, hey, you know the sneaky one that I don't think probably happens? I think Al Horford would be a lot of fun on this roster. People don't like it. Why not?
They're like, dude, he's 40. I'm like, okay.
So's
Like,
LeBron.
yeah. I'm like, yeah, Bobby
I'm
Portis.
joking.
I know. People don't like LeBron here. You're good. Like if this was a Cleveland podcast, like I don't know. Bobby Portis is on a player option. Don't know what happens with him. Like ideally, I'd love it.
Yeah.
Al Horford is like a UFA.
Yep.
Who knows what happens with Boston? He has Michigan ties. He just had his jersey retired here recently, I think this year. Pistons tried to get him over 8 years ago in free agency because he has a connection with Arn Tellem through when Arn was an agent. That's how the Pistons even got an interview with Al to like pitch him to free agency. But I mean, I like it. He can either be a stretch 4 or stretch 5 off your bench and another veteran for Stu and Dern to learn under. Like, I think it would be a really good fit.
I mean, to be clear, it would be a 1-year deal for me, but I realize, I mean, Anthony, he played, you know how many minutes per game he played in the playoffs this year? Minutes per game.
Not off the top of my head, no.
32 minutes per game, 11 games. And in the regular season, he played, his last 4 years, he's averaged, what would that be? It does it for me here. 64 games a season. So not bad. And he's played 28 and a half minutes per game. Shot 39% from 3 on 4.5 attempts, 6.5 rebounds, almost 3 assists, 2.8 to 0.8 assist to turnover ratio. I mean, like, you're not bringing him in to start or like take Tobias's spot or whatever, but just like, hey, we weren't able to get Nas or we weren't able to draft this guy or whatever. Let's bring in this guy for 1 year. Like maybe it's a 1+1 with a team option, something like that. I would be okay with that. I think Al Horford could still offer this team a little bit coming off what I thought he's definitely slowing down. There's no question about it, but in that role, I think that would be good. I'm with you there. It's interesting. There's so much pushback on that.
Yeah, I'm getting pushed back right now in the chat. Like he's gonna get injured. Like no, he's old. I was like, I get it. Like I think fans are just like going from 14 to 44. They want to accelerate and just like put a match onto that fire to see how far this thing can go. And I get it. Like it's been miserable. I can't remember when you started covering the Pistons, but
my first year was Killian's rookie season when they ended up trading Derrick Rose and waiving or whatever they did with Blake Griffin, where they bought him out, I guess. So that was my first year. Yeah,
man.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't get the good Blake year even. Yeah, and listen, I wasn't watching the Pistons regularly when I first started doing this, so I didn't have a ton of context. I walked into Sekou and Killian were the saviors of the franchise. That's what I walked into.
You walked into the French connection.
Exactly. That's what I walked into. That was the start of Motor City Hoops. Yeah. So this year was a lot of fun compared to those first 4 seasons.
I bet, man. You probably had a blast. You didn't have to watch like a 20-win team, and
it was O2 and I talked all the time about how like content was so much easier this year because we would just literally talk about what happened on the court, and we weren't in January trying to talk draft prospects and anything else. Like we literally got to talk about basketball, including the playoff, which was even more fun.
Yeah, like when I had Blake and Wes on 2 separate times, so I had them on in the beginning of the season. Asked them, think that we can make the playoffs? They're like, no shot. And then had them on towards the end of the year. I'm like, oh, what changed? And Wes is like, well, this is what changed. And it's just like I was telling him, I was like, dude, it's so positive. Like we can just talk about anything. We don't have to talk about off the court drama. We don't have to talk about fans telling Troy, like, you need to get out of here. Like they cleaned up so much things. And I don't know about you, but podcasting this season was a lot of fun, a lot of roller coasters. I called them the cardiac kids because they gave me chest pains every fourth quarter, man. Like I was like, oh, they're gonna blow another lead, damn it. And then they come back, or like the Jaden Ivey one that I stayed up for, did a post-game podcast at 4:30 in the morning. Nice. I was just like, dude, let's go. Like
it was
This season was fun.
It was so much fun. And the nice thing about the fan, what's funny is like our numbers didn't do like some of it was better, but it was like this fan base even lived through the like we're there through the bad years. Like that's what I always appreciate about the fan base. I know sometimes it can be a lot. I sometimes I get frustrated with the everybody's on this side and everybody's on that side, and then nobody wants to see each other's side. Like that's just life. I never take for granted how intense and excited this fan base is. Like even with Al Horford or whatever right now, like I love it. I love that they can be that energetic on what would be a very low signing, but it's like they always have an opinion on something, which is good, because if they didn't have opinions, if they didn't care, we wouldn't have podcasts to talk about it.
No, I mean it's 1:40 on a Sunday, and we got like Frank on Facebook. He's like, next year I predict Eastern Conference Finals, not necessarily winning it, but playing in it. Like we got people watching on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Almost got 600 people on here on a Sunday afternoon. But I appreciate you coming on, man. I think I have you on at least once a year. I tried to get you on during the season, but both of our schedules are just like crazy busy. But yes, I appreciate you coming on. I do want to give you the floor one more time to plug and promote what you do on Substack, Pistons Pulse, and everything else that you do.
So at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, Blue Sky, the motorcityhoops.substack.com. Again, a lot of what's coming up over the next month will be NBA draft related. I have 2 video breakdowns out. Ryan Cockbrenner's coming Monday morning will be the 3rd, and then I'll just keep going through like Lanier and Kobe Brea, Drake Powell. Those guys will probably be coming up next. And then during the season, it's game notes and analysis. And my guy, Harry from Order of the Blazing Horse, he does some video reactions and stuff like that. So lots of cool content over there. Again, guys, it is completely free. No charge whatsoever to subscribe. The Pistons Pulse podcast, we record live over on the Free Press. So don't look for that on YouTube. Look for the Detroit Free Press YouTube. You can watch us live, or of course, Apple, Spotify, all of that. And then if you want NBA general content, NBA in general content, the Game Theory podcast with Sam Vecenie, where we cover the NBA and the NBA draft.
Yeah, so we have all your links in the description. We have Substack. We got your Twitter. I have the Pistons Pulse / Detroit Free Press. So they'll just go directly to the Free Press's YouTube channel, so you guys can go subscribe to them and check them out there. The podcast on YouTube is really easy to find. All you have to type in is Pistons Pulse, and all your guys' podcasts just populate like that. But I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you, Mr. Ray, another banger of the show. Thank you, Anthony and Bryce. Yeah, I gotta go cut my grass, man. My neighbors are gonna be yelling at me. It's been maybe a week or so because of all the rain, but it's gonna be fun trying to cut it all.
I cut mine yesterday, so.
Oh man, I have so many. I have like probably 6 20-feet pine trees I have to kind of maneuver and weed with. And then it's up a hill and then a ditch. So it's a good time.
Mine's very level, and I refuse to plant trees for that very reason.
Oh man, I have one that I have to cut. It's like a 15-foot one that's just like leaning like this. And I was just like, I do not want to cut this. I am just procrastinating it. I was like, please just fall on another tree so I don't have to get the chainsaw. But I appreciate you, man. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Take care. Go Pistons.